Welcome back to another episode of Rock Boys Football. Ohio State, Oregon roster battle, going through both of these depth charts, taking position room, stacking these two teams. And Dill, when we scheduled this one, I know we're going to take some heat in the comment section. I mean, you are looking at not only two of the best teams in the Big Ten, two of the best teams in the country heading into 2024. There's going to be a lot of debate. We're going to catch a lot of flack in the comments section. Really excited to get into this one. Before we do, and as always, just want to say thank you to you guys. And these roster battles have been an absolute blast, and largely because of you guys in the comments section. Whether you agree, whether you disagree with us, let it fly in the comment section. That's what college football is about. Appreciate you guys rocking with it. If y'all do enjoy the content, consider subscribing to the channel. And Dill, I'm going to start you. I'm going to give you the T-box here because this is one of the more contested ones we're going to have. That quarterback room, Oregon, Ohio State. Who you got here?
I think it's got to be Oregon just by the nature of Dylan Gabriel having played what I'd call dominant football in his college career. And I just don't think you've seen that out of Will Howard yet. He's played really good football for sure, but you've never really seen him stack a season or, like, frankly, some of the ones Dylan Gabriel's been able to put out. So, again, I think both are super talented. Both are well constructed in terms of your layers. You got your young, promising guys with a lot of talent, like guys like Dante Moore, Julian Sayin, for example. But I just think the way Dylan Gabriel's been able to play at his peak versus where Will Howard's probably been, I think you got to give it to them.
The deepest room in the country is Ohio State, right? You look at five just absolute stallions in that quarterback room. You look at Oregon, you got three really good ones too. Quite frankly, that's one of the deepest rooms in the country as well. I'm going to go Oregon too, and I'm going to go because you look at Dylan Gabriel and say there will be people who knock Dylan Gabriel, be like he's not an NFL arm. Okay, what if he's not a top 10 NFL draft pick? He still fits what Will Stein wants to do like a glove in terms of what they want to do on the offensive side of the football. Quite frankly, you can say a lot of the same things for Will Howard and this Chip Kelly offense, but I'm with you. When you're evaluating quarterback rooms, I think you put a lot of emphasis on the quarterback one. I think Dylan Gabriel, I take over Will Howard as we stand. That's a really tight one. You guys can let it fly in the comment section until we got another tight one right here. Wide receivers, Oregon, Ohio State. I'm gonna put you on the hot seat again here. What wide receiver room are you taking?
This might be a little paradoxical from my argument from the previous one where I kind of going with the proven production. I think I'm going to lean Ohio State. And I kind of get Oregon does have a little bit more of a proven production room in terms of what you have with guys like Evan Stewart and Tez Johnson. Even Trayshawn Holden's played pretty good football in his career to this point. And frankly, with Ohio State, you really have your one guy in Ibuka who's played really good football. I just think you look like what they've recruited, guys like Jeremiah Smith coming in who feel like they might be generational, a guy in Carnell Tate and Brandon Innes who I feel like, I mean, they can be as good as anyone in the country. It's hard to say. I think you just can think about what Ohio State's done developing, how proven they've been in that course, and how talented they are. I'm going to lean slightly to Ohio State, but that's another one that could go either way.
You're looking at arguably the two best wide receivers in the country. There's no question about it. I'm going to go with Oregon, but I'm going to give Ohio State's wide receiver room some love too. And Dill, you mentioned two of the guys that probably get the most noise, Ramon Emeka Ibuka, Jeremiah Smith. Yes, the proven production is not there with Jeremiah Smith, but if you guys follow the recruiting trail, you follow the spring practice notes, you follow the spring game, the spring videos, I don't know how much projection there is with Jeremiah Smith. I think a lot of people, and I don't normally say this about true freshmen, I think a lot of people are just assuming Jeremiah Smith's going to step on and be a ball player. I'm kind of under that department. He is one of the freakier guys I've ever seen coming from high school. Still, Carnell Tate is a guy that is probably wide receiver one on multiple Power 5 programs. Nobody talks about him. He's an absolute stud too. You mentioned Brandon Innes as well. I'm going to go with the Oregon Ducks. And why I'm going with the Oregon Ducks is I think Evan Stewart on the flip side is probably one of the most disrespected players in the country. People forget that Evan Stewart, as a true freshman in 2022, was an absolute stud. Then you fast forward to 2023, starting quarterback goes down with an injury week 4. He struggles with injuries. That Jimbo Fisher, Texas A&M program, kind of just blew up. Evan Stewart's one of the best wide receivers in the country. Tez Johnson is one of the best wide receivers in the country. Trayshawn Holden's an absolute stud. You have a couple other guys like Jurion Dickey and Kyle Casper. I'll go with the proven production. Do I feel good about it? Absolutely not. Again, probably the two best wide receiver rooms in the country heading into 2024. I'll go Oregon. Dill, Now, a little bit of an easier one right here, at least in my opinion, the running back room, Oregon, Ohio State. Who you got here?
Yeah, and it's got to be Ohio State, and that's like Oregon's got a really good room.
Yeah,
I mean,
damn good one.
like he's really good, played really well in the spring. Knew he kind of had potential and proved it. Jordan James is really good. I mean, really good. I feel like people thought when Oregon lost Bucky Irving, it was like, oh, who are they going to? I mean, Jordan James was good last year. He looked really good this year. I think he's going to have a great year. It's just Ohio State's they're the best running back room in the country. You have Travion Henderson, who when he's healthy, he's the best running back in the country in my mind. I don't even know. I don't want to say it's not close because, of course, it's like kind of close, but I think it's solidified that he's there when he's the guy. He's the man. And Quinshon Judkins, when you bring him in and you have that 1-2 punch, that's as good as it gets right now, right?
You said something that I've been kind of banging the table for. That's Travion Henderson. Like the amount of disrespect he gets in terms of how we're stacking running backs and we're putting other running backs in the first round that's not named Travion Henderson. Travion Henderson can do it all. And I think as Michigan fans, like we remember Travion Henderson as a true freshman just cutting it up in the Big Ten. When you get a healthy Travion Henderson, yeah, I'm with you. I don't think there's a better running back in the country. And then you have Quinshon Judkins, who I think is unquestionably a top 5 running back in the country. I love Jordan James, Jay Harris, Noah Whittington. You're looking at, unquestionably the best running back room in the country. Got to go Ohio State. On the offensive line, I also think this is probably pretty easy. I'll look at Oregon and say Josh Connerly Jr., Johnny Cornelius. I mean, 2 first-round caliber NFL tackles. You look on the inside, you bring in Matthew Bedford. A guy like Marcus Harper has started a ton of football. Not many questions about Big Poncho at the center spot. I mean, this is, in my mind, one of the best offensive lines in the country. And then you look at Ohio State and say, that's probably the one position group that we don't think is going to be a leader. At least we have question marks about it being elite in 2024. You got to lean Oregon here.
And you like the left side of Ohio State's offensive line. I think that's a really good unit.
Yes,
that you go win championships with. I mean, I don't know how you couldn't have questions about the right side. I just don't know who's going to play it. I wasn't wildly impressed in the spring game. And caveat, they're working on one of the best defensive lines in the country and what Ohio State's bringing. So you obviously got to factor that in. But the play on that side wasn't that great last year. They didn't really bring in anyone, I think, to solidify that. And you just have questions. In Oregon, you have no questions.
That's kind of what it comes down to me, right? Oregon, 0 questions. Ohio State, you have a couple questions. Working to the defensive line. Another really interesting one. I'll go first here. I lean Ohio State. You look at Ohio State at the edge rusher spots. I mean, Jack Sawyer, JTT2, kind of first-round NFL candidates. And they both could have been probably day 2 picks in the NFL draft had they declared. And then you talk about the depth. A guy like Kenyatta Jackson Jr., who I love coming out of high school. You've seen great stuff when he's been able to play. It's a deep team. I think they're good on the inside with guys like Ty Hamilton and Williams. Hero Kanu, I think, is an absolute stud. I like Oregon's defensive line. I think you have some question marks about who are going to emerge as those guys at the edge rusher spot where you look at Ohio State and say, we know who our guys are. You probably got to lean Ohio State here.
And you like Oregon obviously making big splash in the transfer lately.
Yeah.
So that's part of it. And it's just that Ohio State's so loaded. I think they're right up there with anyone, the best defensive lines in the country. I think to bring those starting four back, I mean, they were all hammers. I think, again, we talk a lot about the 2 edge guys, and they're great. But to ignore the fact that Ty Hamilton and Tyleek Williams are like 2 of the better defensive tackles in the country, I almost think that almost gets overshadowed. So I just think they're so loaded. They're really deep. They have guys who can do multiple different things, and Kenyatta Jackson can probably rush a little better on the pure edge than the other 2, but those 2 play the run really. It's just such a loaded, well-constructed roster. I don't know.
Agreed. You like the Ohio State defensive line.
Again, I don't see, when I look, I just don't see that many teams in the country that are better than that up front. Maybe Michigan. That's the only one.
Going to the linebacker. Though people get mad at me for interrupting you. I'm like, sometimes you just got to stop the kid. He's going on about this Ohio State defensive line. They're good. All right, going down to the linebacker spot. This is where we disagreed. We were talking about this a little bit before we went live here. I'll let you have the first word here. I'll end with a rebuttal. Who you got, Oregon, Ohio State at the linebacker spot?
I think it's got to be Oregon. And that's the one position that I didn't like Ohio State wasn't elite there, I didn't think last year. Obviously, you can tell by where their two guys get drafted, or Steele Chambers just not getting drafted. The fact that none of those younger guys with all this potential that we've been hearing about could crack it and really play meaningful snaps, I think is slightly concerning. And on the other hand, I mean, Justin Jacobs and Jeffrey Bossa both played really good, solid football last year. And I don't know that they're like an elite unit at the linebacker spot, but I don't know how you can't have some questions about what Ohio State's going to, and their ceiling is definitely higher. You look at what Ohio State's ceiling is, it's a higher ceiling than what Oregon is, I think, right now. I just think the way those two played in Oregon, it was really solid. And naturally, I think you got to have some questions because I don't think the linebacker play was great last year, and they didn't really make many changes.
Yeah, this is a little bit of a projection for me. I think Sonny Styles is going to be studied at linebacker. I guess that's what it comes down to. Like, I think he was really good in the back end. You move him down to that linebacker spot. He straight up looks like a linebacker. You talk about Cody Simon, a guy that's played a lot of football, and then CJ Hicks. Yes, CJ Hicks, we haven't necessarily seen it from him, but going into year 3, you probably think it's going to click between the years at some point. I'm going to lean with Ohio State because you kind of have, you know what you got with Cody Simon, and then you have two guys in Styles and CJ Hicks that could give you some big-time upside at that linebacker room. And you look at Oregon's linebacker room, and Justin Jacobs, Jeffrey Bossa, if you were asking me right now to pick my linebacker room, I might lean Oregon because you know what you got with those guys. But you talk about come week 3, week 4, week 5, when we get a chance to see these backers, I think we might be talking about an Ohio State linebacker room that's really damn good in 2024. Going to the back end, really interesting conversation. I'll let you have the first word here. Oregon in the secondary, Ohio State in the secondary. Who you got?
And I'm going to go Ohio State, and that's mainly just because of the presence of Caleb Downs. Because I look at both these cornerback rooms, those are ultra good rooms. I mean, really deep. Starting, they have those true number ones, and again, that's kind of hard to find, frankly, in college football when you have guys like Jabbar Muhammad and obviously Denzel Burke. Like those are prototypical, probably potentially first round picks. I just look at the safety room for Oregon. I just don't know that they have anyone who's particularly in Caleb Downs' league, and I think the cornerback's kind of a wash. So that's probably why I lean at Ohio State.
That's right. I'm right there with you. Like when I looked at these two secondary rooms, I say, all right, in the cornerback room, it's probably a push, right? Jabbar Muhammad, Denzel Burke, two of the best cornerbacks in the country. I have a lot of confidence in guys like Cam Alexander, Jaleel Florence, Dante Manning. I also have a lot of confidence in the Ohio State cornerbacks, but I look at the safeties specifically and say, that's probably where Ohio State has the edge. They probably have the better safety pair with Lathan Ransom and Caleb Downs. It's really close. I have a lot of confidence in Oregon's secondary room too, but I think you look at Ohio State and say we might be dealing with the best secondary in the country come 2024. Though that'll do it. I mean, we talked a lot about position groups that were, just bona fide like top 5, top 10 units in the country. Some of them were 1 and 2, in my opinion, in the wide receiver room. Hopefully Ole Miss fans aren't listening to this one because I took some heat when I had Oregon and Ohio State in the top 2 during my wide receiver rankings. Really good teams. I can't wait for the fall. I can't wait for these two teams to play. You're looking at 2 of the best teams in the country. Again, appreciate you guys rocking with the fellas. If y'all do enjoy the content, consider subscribing to the channel. Let it fly in the comment section. Appreciate you guys. We'll talk to y'all later.